Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the College Baseball Coaches Corner, brought to you by Just Baseball Media. I'm Jared, that's Mark, and we have an incredible guest with us today, Dan Skirka, head coach of the Murray State Racers. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Doing great. Great to see you guys.
Yeah, excited to have you on. Of course, we're following your journey last year all the way to Omaha, and just really excited to sit down and chat with you about the upcoming season. But the first question we always ask is just for the viewers who don't know you, give us a little bit of background and kind of on your coaching journey, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so the quick kind of rundown. I grew up in Michigan, played junior college ball at Kellogg Community College, and then moved on to Grand Valley State, a really good Division II program up there, and then got into coaching. My mentors and advised me to. I always wanted to. Was looking more at the teaching and high school side, and then they said, "Man, do college while you can. Give it a shot." I'm glad they did. I took a $5,000 job at Ouachita Baptist University in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. Was trying to get my master's and make a little bit of cash, and convinced my fiance at the time to go down there with me, and we ended up getting married and spent a year there, and then came to Murray State as an assistant coach for 5 years under Rob McDonald. Then after the 2014 season, he was let go. I had to find another job, and was fortunate enough to land at Walter State Community College under Coach Dave Shelton. Spent 4 years there. So grateful for my time with those guys and with him, and just was phenomenal. And kind of crazy timing and God's timing. It worked out well that Murray State had as an opening as we were playing for the JUCO national championship. So wasn't a better time to be hot, I guess, and convince them to hire a junior college assistant coach to come run this program in 2019, and now I've been here for 8 years now, going into season 8.
Yeah, coach. I mean, it's crazy, right? We're already heading into season 8 for you. 5 straight 30-win seasons, record last year, most wins ever in program history. Just talk a little bit about how that special run was last year. I mean, I know we got to see it in Omaha. It was great getting to catch up with you there, but now that into the fall ball this next season, talk a little bit just about how special that was.
Yeah, yeah, just for me or my family, which obviously it was phenomenal for, right, to have my son and wife there with me. The whole journey was so special, and he and I can share that the rest of our lives. I'm truly blessed. But just for our guys, their journeys were very, very unique. So many of them. Our 3 guys that moved on to pro ball alone, right? Just those 3 guys, all were cut from other programs, and you talk about the journey that they were on, and it's like, man, that's just amazing. And there's so many more individually for those guys, but then also the community in Murray State. I mean, we've never had anything like that happen here. Historical basketball program here, a lot of success, but never been to the Sweet 16. Let alone kind of the national stage like we were on last year. Just for the community, for all the alumni, the baseball alumni and the Murray State alumni. I don't know how many people I've run into that said they went to Murray State or were following us, and I think that's just cool. It's still happening now, and I think that's kind of months later, it's still kind of sinking in with me. But I think it shows what a journey that was, and the people that got to see it, and how we went about it, right? And as far as going on the road and overcoming adversity and dogpiling twice at Duke, just the crazy things that happen along that journey, and you fall in love with that, right? And especially this day and age with transfer portal and NIL and so on and so forth. But when you got to see those guys and some of the interviews and how they went about it and watch our team play, it was cool. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, coach. And kind of building off of that, you could see a lot of like what goes into Murray State baseball, as you mentioned, through a lot of those interviews, like Dustin Mercer, Jonathan Hogarth, all these guys. When they were doing those interviews in Omaha, you could just kind of see what your program was built on. But for you, what does Murray State look like on the field, off the field, in the locker room?
Our culture is everything. It
Yeah.
really is, and I think that's what kind of bled through to everybody, right? And sunk in. It was like, man, these guys they truly loved each other, like they did, and they played hard. They played the game in my mind, the right way, right? We got after it. We really competed in the box. Everybody talked about that. Like, man, you guys are so hard to strike out. And I was like, well, they were tough dudes. They're tough dudes off the field, and that showed on the field in the batter's box. So many our pitchers, were pitching on 1 or 2 days rest or no rest for our closer. It's like record number of pitches, and he came right back the next day. And just those kind of things. You're like, man, those guys were tough, and they truly were. Their journey and their path to get there, it really prepared them to do what they did. And I think that was what was so cool. So when you talk about our culture and kind of what we're about, like, me personally, I'm trying to develop these guys, and that's my number one goal. I tell them in our first meeting, I tell them in the recruiting process, like, my number one goal is to develop men on and off the field. That's the number one thing, and we use this great game of baseball to do it, right? And all the lessons that it'll teach us: failure, accountability, being a good teammate, overcoming adversity, the everything, bad umpires, right? We always got to mention that. Just all those things that baseball will teach you is what we use to develop these guys. That's my goal. And then we want them to have a great experience, right? And part of that's competing, part of that's getting in the community, part of that's, winning, right? Like, that's, everybody has a better experience when you're winning. So that culture is everything. And that's kind of what we're about, developing men as the coaches, and the players. They love the game of baseball. I mean, they come to Murray knowing, we may not have all the bells and whistles as everybody else, but they're going to develop. They're going to get a chance to play at a very, very high level. They're going to have coaches pour into them, and they're going to be surrounded by really good teammates.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be a big thing for you guys, Coach, right? Like, you look every year building new guys coming to the program, like every single D1 baseball program. How do you continue to have these next rail of guys that show up and just be the mentors for that next group and say, hey, this is what Racer baseball is about. This is how we progress and continue to build?
Well, I think it's part of our process. That's a really good question this day and age, and I think you talk about your past experiences and how that prepares you for your current battles, right? And maybe it was getting to coach at junior college for me, playing at junior college. I always tell the guys I've kind of went through everything they've went through, right? I was the junior college guy that showed up as a junior on a new team, so I can relate to the things they're going through. I was replaced in the batting order. I was moved down. I got changed positions. I got recruited over. Like, all those things that they've gone through, I've kind of experienced, and I remember that. And then coaching at the junior college level, where the turnover is a lot higher, and you lose your leaders pretty much every year, and you gotta kind of develop more to be in the spot that the next year that culture is strong. So this day and age, when that's happening, I think our process has kind of prepared us for that. But it starts with recruiting the right people. Let me rephrase that. Because that's ultimately what your culture is going to be. And when you bring in the right people, then we just got to figure out who's playing what position and who fits what role. But if we don't bring in the right people, that's a recipe for disaster. Because when you don't have, that continuity, the leaders, and that's when it can really snowball in the wrong way. So starts with recruiting the right guys, and our process and our culture here of getting them in and getting them to buy in. But like I said, winning always kind of helps that, right? They're right now they're listening and very attentive and kind of bought into everything we're doing. I think because of our past success, we've had success of bringing in junior college guys. We've had success of developing freshmen. We've had success with transfer portal guys coming in here and having good years. So they're listening, they're open, and I think that's the cool thing, because when you get the right guys that are coachable, and you believe in my coaches, that's when we can do these special things we've been doing.
I love that, Coach. And just kind of shifting into looking into the 2026 season. I know most schools have already wrapped up fall ball.
Yes.
For you all, what are some of the things that you saw this fall that are really standing out to you and have you kind of excited for 2026?
The culture, to be honest with you, because that's always your fear, right? You're like, man, again, totally newcomers this year. We got more new guys than returners. But they were just bought in from day one, and we've given them after it. I don't think we've really skipped a beat with that side of it. And I've heard the conversations, and right now we're pretty heavy in getting recruits on campus, and hearing those incoming recruits, have newcomers tell them about the culture here, that they love it. They've never been surrounded by so many good guys, and the coaches are pouring into them, and it's like, okay, this new group, these 20 new guys, even though it's only been 3 months, they're all in on what we're doing. So that's really the big thing for me that stood out. We've dealt with some injuries this fall, kind of on a small scale that causes you some anxiety and concern as a head coach, but nothing we shouldn't be healthy with by the spring. But when you're injured, you can't develop. So that's kind of what hopefully we can just heal and rehab right now and be ready to hit the ground running in January. I've been really impressed with the returners that we do have. They stepped up huge, just with their leadership and leading by example and even being more vocal than they have in the past. So that's always a good thing. But we competed pretty well in our games and in our scrimmages. So something definitely to build on come January when they get back.
Yeah. I mean, no reason to think it doesn't continue to build, right? Coaches, this program now, like you said, 5 straight 30-win seasons. Guys returning and bringing on that. But what do you bring from last year's team and say, okay, this is things that we could build on and be even better this year. This is things that we could build on and be that kind of team again this year and go out there and win another Missouri Valley Conference championship.
Good question, Mark. My kind of this fall is system change. We got right back to doing the same things we did last year. The names might have changed and some of the positions or roles might have changed, but what we do and how we do it, that's not going to change. If anything, it just gave me more confidence in what we do. Like, it works. Our plan, our practice plan, our strength and conditioning plan, our off the field, our leadership program, like it works. So the process isn't going to change. I told our assistant coaches, we got to get better at it. We want to be, the first time ever. And again, it's only 8 years, but in my 8th season, this is the first time I brought back my whole coaching staff. Yeah. And to have those guys with me and familiar with how we do things here. And now we can grow. Now they can challenge me to be a better leader. Like, what about this idea? What about that idea? Whereas last year it was 3 new assistant coaches that were trying to get used to how we do things and get used to the players. So, but to answer your question, like I said, the process isn't going to change. Like we're right back to baseball 100 and getting after it and learning how to compete and developing a team. But we're trying to be even better with what we do and how we do it.
Yeah, I love that, Coach. And you talked a little bit through a lot of these conversations about recruiting the right guys, bringing the right guys in. For you, just being kind of one of the smaller schools, how do you all recruit differently than the larger programs and the Power 5 schools? And what goes into your process in making sure you're getting the right guys in the door?
Very meticulous. My assistant coaches probably get frustrated with me because they're probably ready to pull the trigger a lot quicker than I am. And I ask more questions and make sure they've called all the coaches and we've watched all the video and talked to the kid and Zoomed with the kid and try to visit as much as possible. But we're very meticulous. And I think sometimes it might cost us a kid because we don't pull the trigger as fast when things kind of get sped up and I don't want to say rushed, but sometimes I think decisions from recruits get rushed, and we try to not do that. We try to really be careful with who we bring in and gets to wear this uniform because, like I said, that's everything. If we get great people that we want to be around that love the game, then we can figure out the baseball side. And like I said, my assistants probably get frustrated because they're the ones out beating the bushes and making all the phone calls, and they probably don't know what to say to the kid when I'm not ready to pull the trigger yet. But that's just everything, And I got asked that a lot last year during our run. They're like, "Oh, this national exposure is going to change how you guys recruit." And I said, "Well, it's not going to change how we recruit. We might, it might open some other people's eyes to Murray State." But our process ain't going to change with that. We're still going to start with the person and the family and making sure we're getting the right people and really digging in on that side of it. So, but I'm excited about it. I think, the future and to see, what kind of talent we can bring in here. And that part is definitely exciting.
Yeah. Like you said, family and bringing in the right guys is very important, Coach. But when you look at it on the other side, you go, all right, I learned these from somebody. So who's some of your mentors that kind of got you to this spot? And now you're shifting into that role now where you are the mentor for a lot of these guys that are coming up in this game.
Yeah, man, it's kind of scary. But I did, man. I leaned on so many mentors all the way through. I mean, basically when I started in junior college, like I loved the game, and I was always picking my coach's brain, and was just, was fortunate enough to be a team captain. I just had that kind of mind, right? Even from when I was a kid, I was the one in the neighborhood organizing the games, right? Basketball, football, but like didn't matter. I was one knocking on doors, like, come on guys, let's go play. Let's go. Let's divide up teams. Let's play. Let's compete. So I kind of come by it, from a long time of doing it, but my junior college coach, Eric Lescovy at Kellogg Community College, talk to him to this day often, right? See him when I go back up to Michigan. When I got to Grand Valley, Jamie Detillion was the assistant coach. He ended up taking over. I just always picking his brain on hitting, on practice. I remember going recruiting with him when I was a senior, just learning. And then after I got into coaching, my first year at OBU, Luke Howard, he and I are really close. He's the head coach now at Ouachita Baptist. We talk again weekly. I make sure I'm calling and talking to him and seeing what he's going through and running ideas by him. And I mentioned Dave Shelton at Walters. Learned so much from him in my 4 years there. Just so many guys. And Rob McDonald, while I was here as an assistant for 5 years, he was as good as I've ever seen on the field with the mechanics of baseball and teaching the game and skill development. And I'm sure I'm forgetting some guys, but just so many people, man. I've tried to be a learner, just to pick from everybody. I love going to our coaches conventions and during the COVID shutdown, I was watching and zooming and trying to get every bit of information I can and just to learn. They're a whole lot smarter than me out there, so I'm gonna pick and steal from everybody.
I love it. Coach, talking about the schedule next year, I know I don't think you guys have dropped it yet, but just the Valley Conference and kind of how good the baseball is there. I know Missouri State's had a history of being good, Southern Illinois. For you, kind of what are you looking for as that conference continues to build and become a better baseball conference?
Yeah, the tradition of the league from programs like you mentioned, even to some of the coaches that have rolled through the league, and then definitely the players. I mean, you're seeing them. Rookie of the year this year came from Missouri State. The coaching line and just so many good names and traditions. We were honored when we joined the league. I'll tell you that, and really look to keep building it and do our part with it. But the scheduling piece is tough because we're in kind of that weird zone in Kentucky where we try to bring in some northern teams, and play at home. We don't want to be on the road all the time. But then at the same time, we're going to head down south. We're going to play UCF in a weekend series. We got a return trip to Lindenwood for a weekend series. So trying to prepare yourself for that kind of a tough league, and college baseball is as good as it's ever been. And, there's a lot of good leagues out there. So that's exactly what we're trying to do with everybody else, right? Like use those first 5 weekends, figure out who fits what role and prepare to win our league. Cause ultimately that's what's going to get us, into a regional.
Yeah, and you mentioned it right there. The game continues to grow. This game has gotten massive over the last few years, especially with the fan bases and people coming out and being able to afford to go to games, right? Like you can afford to bring a family to a college baseball game now. It's pretty tough sometimes in the MLB. Talk just a little bit about how awesome it was to fill up your stadium and be able to have some of those fans that came. And then they went on the road with you guys for basically 3 weeks and just sort of like, hey, we're part of this. We're on this journey with you, coach.
Yeah, you mentioned it, and our games are free. Like we don't even charge admission at Murray, and that's what's going to be neat. We're hosting the conference tournament this year because we were the regular season champ last year, and tournament's going to be free. So if anybody's looking for something to do the last weekend of May, visit Murray, Kentucky. You got free college baseball, and like you mentioned at a high level. So, but yeah, that trip was wild. It was neat. Starting at the Oxford Regional, and I think they only gave us 200 tickets, and those were gone in a blink of an eye. And then we landed in Durham for the Super, and the same thing. They gave us a bigger allotment, and they were gone. I mean, people were texting me like crazy, trying to get a hold of my wife. Like, how do we get tickets? Can you get us tickets? And I was like, man, that many people are coming. And then that first day at Duke, I mean, it was about split 50-50. And you're like, holy cow. And then we obviously got out to Omaha and to hear, Hogarth got announced that first time, and to hear the crowd, man, I got goosebumps. I really did. It was so awesome to just hear everybody kind of erupt for the Racers, and Jonathan in that moment was special.
No, I love it. we're going to wrap up with some fun questions. Mark, do you have any other questions on your end before we go in there?
No, those are the ones I wanted to hit with Coach.
Awesome. First question I got for you. So when you're not thinking about baseball, not doing baseball, what do you do off the field for fun? What's the go-to things for you?
I play pickup basketball at lunch.
Nice.
That's my retreat. I get the shoes on. I head right across campus. We play in one of the old gyms, and that's my chance to compete, get a sweat, and get some of that competitiveness out of me before I go to practice. So,
is that like 3-on-3, 5-on-5?
Sometimes, usually 4-on-4. We play
4-on-4.
half court 4-on-4, but we'll run full sometimes when we get enough guys. So
Yeah.
we're all getting older, and it's harder to recover and be able to do it as much as we used to.
Yeah, I hear you. I had to switch over to golf, Coach. I had to stop playing competitive slow pitch and getting out there and playing pickup basketball. I'm like, man, it doesn't feel like the same as it used to. But guys just never stop being competitive. And, you look out there and you get to go do those fun things with those guys. I mean, it's got to be fun to just go play some pickup basketball and be like, I'm competing still getting out there and getting after it, right?
Some of my assistant coaches and a couple local guys, a couple donors, and even sometimes some of the students just from Murray State will show up and try to run with us old guys. So it's fun.
If it wasn't baseball, Coach, what would we be doing in life?
And I have no idea. I say that all the time. I really do. I love this, and I eat it. I breathe it. Like I really do. Like I don't have many hobbies other than trying to be a good dad and a good husband. That's about it. I love to watch the NFL. That's kind of my So if I wasn't coaching baseball, I'd probably be coaching something else. But I really don't know, fellas. I don't have many skills. I'll tell you that.
We say the weirdest answer we got was Skylar Mead at Troy, who said he would be a storm chaser. So
yeah, Skylar, that sounds like Skylar.
That's what we said to her. Like, yeah, that checks out.
That makes sense. For you, Coach, if you could go back and coach any team in history, doesn't matter the sport, which team would you want to coach?
Coach any team in history. Ooh.
Loaded question.
That is, man. I'm thinking, back to my roots, the Detroit Tigers, they won the World Series. And right before I was born in May of '85. And so I haven't witnessed a World Series, but just watching that growing up with Trammell and Gibson and those guys, like, I think, always watching Sparky in the dugout, like, I think that would have been quite a trip in Old Tiger Stadium. Like, I think that's the first thing that pops in right there.
Love it. Mark, what about you?
Yeah. Oh, I'm still stuck on 2001 Beavers, man. If that would have been just a ride. Like it's hard, growing up 30 minutes from Corvallis and getting to see that, and then being a part of that was just awesome when I was a kid. I was a sophomore in high school, and back then they called up all the high schools around to do security. They didn't pay for security, so they had us just put on these like security jackets, and we'd stand on the field. And being a part of that was just awesome. But like, yeah, looking back, I'm like, oh, if I was doing something that wasn't baseball, it probably would have been a football realm, my coach. So yeah, that would have been fun to do the 2001 Beavers.
I love it. Last one I got for you, Coach. Yeah, you talked about kind of the grind through the ranks, basically to become a head coach. And I know I've had a lot of friends that have gone through the same kind of volunteer assistant coach, just trying to make it through day to day with that. So, like, what would be your one piece of advice for a guy who might be on a similar journey, trying to kind of grind it out to find it to that next level?
I think the key for me, looking back on it, was working while you wait, right? And it's God's timing. You never know when that opportunity is going to come. I mean, one, I thought I was smarter than I was when I was a younger coach, right? Like everybody, thought I had all the answers, and I'm gonna do it this way when I, get the opportunity. But then you get humbled in a hurry, but while I was at Walters, I applied for a lot of jobs. We were winning, and everybody's like, "Oh, you're not going to be here that long." And I'm like, I'd like to be a head coach. And I was, calling junior colleges in our league, and I didn't get called back or an interview, and some D2 jobs. And I was just like, but I just kept working, right, and preparing. And then, the Lord blessed me with this opportunity, and I feel like I was truly prepared, like because I did it, behind the scenes. It wasn't, I didn't get here and, didn't know what to do. I was, obviously I was familiar with Murray State and the ins and outs, but I really did use that time to prepare and put in the work while I was waiting. And it wasn't easy. I won't say that, but trusting in God's plan and working while you wait.
I love it. Mark, you got any other questions before before we wrap up?
No, just wanted to see if Coach wanted to say anything out to the Murray State fans. I mean, can't wait for this baseball season. I know Jared and I are pumped for the 2026 season. I know you're probably in that same boat, just waiting. Wait until February 13th, Coach. Like, what do you want to say to those fans?
That's it. Can't wait to see everybody out at the ballpark, and really excited for this team. I know it's a new team, right? It's a new year, and hopefully we can do something special again. But really, appreciate all the support we've had, and can't wait to see them out at the ballpark.
Yeah, Coach, and we can't thank you enough for taking the time to join us. So we're super appreciative just to be able to sit down with you, talk about last season, talk about the upcoming season. It was awesome to follow you all last year, and I can't wait to do it again this year.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate your time and what you do.